Hi, everybody. Welcome to the Cupid's Coach podcast. I'm your host, Julie Ferman, inviting you, as I always do, to transform me to we through doing dating better than you used to. I have a really fun episode for you today because I have my girlfriend, my colleague, my affiliate, Gabriella Aratow, on the call from Aspen, Colorado. She's a matchmaker too. Welcome to the show, Gabby.
Thanks for having me, Julie. It's great to be here with you, even though we're both in little towns far away. I'm here with you.
Well, I'm really excited to have Gabby in my world. She's been in my world for a while, but I'm especially interested now because some of you know that Gil and I are moving our primary residence from Santa Fe, New Mexico, up to Denver because that's where Bowie the Uber dog is. That's where our son Kevin is. That's where our son Alex is now, too. And the Ferman 4, it's like Seinfeld, Gabby. I'm Elaine.
Okay,
Okay.
that's funny. I love Elaine.
Actually, you look more like Elaine than I do.
The hair.
That's right. If I put your hair on me,
Yeah.
that's what it's like, the Ferman 4. And I'm always asking people in my world when they're creating their profiles, I'm sure you ask them too, like, what's most important? What matters to you more than anything?
Mm, mhm,
My number one value is love. And underneath love comes family,
mm,
right?
mm,
And my number two value is freedom.
mm,
And
mm,
isn't it nice when we have a business that we can operate in our home
mm,
from anywhere
mm, mhm.
and kind of build the business around our lifestyle?
Yeah, I mean, I feel I have a great privilege to live in a place like Aspen, Colorado, and this profession provides me this privilege because I wasn't tied to a law firm or tied to a hospital somewhere or something. And not that we don't have law firms and hospitals, but it allowed me to pick where I wanted to live without, having to compromise because I've been probably like you running my business remotely for a really long time now.
Where did you live before Aspen?
Just like you, LA, and I don't know if you remember this, Julie, but when I was and I'm 50 now, but when I was 22 or 23, you got in touch with me and we had several conversations and you wanted to set me up with a man named Julian. I never met him, but I never forgot that Julian was somebody that came through you and I never forgot your name.
Well, now I'm going to reach out and find out what's the story with him because he was an early client way, way, way back when. And I don't even know if he's still in LA.
Mhm.
But isn't that interesting? We've actually known each other for that long.
Yeah.
You've seen like the development. I mean, back in those days, it was easy. All I had to do was run a search for him, find my favorite five, share
Mhm.
those profiles with him. And I've always been very detailed in in my profiling, and I really try hard to make photos current, not too photoshopped. I want as few surprises on the first date as possible.
But also, I have to say, I recall in those days, your name was absolutely everywhere. I don't think I heard of another matchmaker who maybe I would have heard of a company. There were a couple companies that came to mind, but you were the one in LA who had a name that was your name.
So it was kind of interesting when I first started it. It was so easy because I could share these profiles. The guy would say yes, maybe. And then if he did, instantly, Gabby would get the email from Julie Ferman. Hey, guess what? We have a suitor for you. I could count on you to log in,
Uh-huh.
check him out, say
Yeah.
yes, no, maybe. If you said no, you'd give me the reason why. And
Yeah.
he would be privy to the reason why.
Uh-huh. Oh, he would. Oh, okay.
I learned later that wasn't such a good idea.
Yeah. Yeah, that's probably true. Yeah.
You can't handle it. But then when both people would say yes, instantly you'd get last name, email address, and phone number.
Uh-huh, wow, yeah, it's not quite like that anymore. The other
You
thing,
can't
of
do
course,
it
LA
anymore.
was especially if you had male clients, I mean, all the actresses from all over the country were moving there and models, and, they still do, and it's just a place where it's like a kid in the candy store for a lot of men who are looking to get married, who are, looking for a particular kind of TV level face.
Yeah. So, one of my questions to you, Gabby, since you're in the mountain towns,
Mhm.
probably attract affluent men,
Mhm.
have lots of goodies, have a wonderful life, couple
Mhm.
of homes, whatever.
Mhm.
Are they looking for unnatural matches for the most part? Are they looking for women who are more than 10 or 15 years younger than they are? That's what I would call an unnatural match.
Mhm, I know what you mean. The answer to that question is really it depends on the client. The truth of the matter is a lot of my clients who live in places like Aspen and Telluride and Vail and these ski towns that I work, they're really, really interested in meeting somebody athletic and sporty, and they will gravitate towards a natural beauty who cares a whole lot more about a fresh powder day than whatever handbag she probably doesn't own. It's just the culture of these towns. They're about experiences in the great outdoors. And a lot of the guys, they want women who will, maybe she doesn't have to do all of them. Maybe she doesn't bike and hike and whatever it is, whatever mountain activity they're doing, fly fish, what have you, but she's probably got to be interested in at least a couple of them. Or he's like, well, yeah, I could go to a city and meet someone who sits behind a desk in New York all day. That's not what they're hiring me for. I really have a niche and a wheelhouse in the world of people who put as their top priority somebody who wants to be enjoying life in a sort of sporty, mountainy fashion.
I love that. So, one of my questions I had written down that I want to ask you, you have already answered, which is who would be really smart to get registered with Gabby? How do they find you online?
Well, first, you just go to my website, keeperintros.com, like you're my keeper. My business is called Keeper Introduction Services, or if you just use the first letters, it's KISS. So that's my cute little clever moment in there. But
You
the truth of the matter is, if you go to my website, it just says mountaintop, bicycle, hiking, adventure. So if you are the type of person who considers yourself the sort who would rather spend 2 or 3 hours in the morning, going up a mountain trail than watching soap operas, you should probably come into my database.
Beautiful. I'm so happy to hear that. And so many of the people I'm working with now, and I'm guessing it might be the same with you, have reached a point in their life where they can work wherever they want, they can work however they want, 50s, 60s, even 70s. I just introduced two people in their early 70s who are big time mountain enthusiasts living in Santa Fe. I see it too. And it's just that's one of the reasons why we moved here. My
Yeah.
husband and I are big time mountain people, hiking, all that. If you are too, we got to hike together.
Yeah, that'd be fun, especially if you have a cute dog we can take.
Oh, he's adorable.
Oh, yeah. Is he a golden? Do you have a golden? Is that I feel like
He's
you're
a
like a golden
big
girl.
white English cream golden retriever. He's the third one we've had. His name is Toby, and
Oh.
he's a handful, and he's extraordinarily expressive, Gabby. He will tell you what's on his mind.
Oh gosh. Oh, how cute.
Oh, he'll
Well,
tell you.
does
So,
he know yet that he's moving to Colorado, which I like to sometimes call dog utopia?
he doesn't know yet, but I
Yeah.
will tell you that Toby and Bowie the Uber dog are
Uh,
having a bromance.
how cute, how cute.
Pink lipstick and all. These guys are in love with each other, and
Oh,
every time
cute.
you
Oh.
watch Kevin's videos on the screen, Toby just goes into like crying and moaning and whining. And so he doesn't know that in about 16 days, he's going to get to see Bowie pretty much every day.
Oh, look at what a matchmaker you are. You're a dog matchmaker too.
It's just the cutest thing. All right. So here's what else I want to know. What inspired you in the beginning to become a matchmaker?
Well, unlike my early 20s, I came around to realizing that I really needed a service like this. When you approached me when I was in my early 20s in LA, you know how it is when you're female in your early 20s. You need Excel spreadsheets to keep track. But then people start to pair together and move in together. And suddenly, all of that choice you had, maybe in college or graduate school or your first job, where all of the lowest rung of people, it starts to get a little more scarce. And then also I started doing a lot more jobs that were remote style jobs, and I just was having a lot less interaction. And then as you get older, you also find the bars a little more taxing. You want to be in your pajamas and go to bed a little bit earlier. So I read about a service like this. I didn't even really, it hadn't occurred to me. And then I saw an advertisement for a service like this and I thought, wow, this is what I need. And I kind of whipped out my credit card. I was going to sign up for it. And then I I thought, no, what I really need to do is go work for them. So I wrote them a letter instead of hiring them, this company. And they called me the next day. They liked my letter. My timing was good because they were staffing up and expanding. They hired me a couple days later, and I became their top rated matchmaker for the next 4 years until I began to feel that the company was doing things that were not, to me, ideally suiting the client or ideally suiting the way that that matchmaking should work. It just felt a little bit like, pardon my terrible French here, but a little bit like male genitalia, female genitalia, put them out, let them have dinner. And it's so much more than that. It's, do you want kids? It's, how do your politics affect the way that you feel about your relationship? It's, is there a religion that's important to you? Or do you need someone to share it's so many different things. And I just felt that the company was more and more being out of touch with the client in a way that I wanted to have a higher and deeper and more profound relationship with the client. So 5 years ago, I broke off from this company and I started Kiss. And you know how it is because you yourself are something of a solopreneur, who came out of a big company. And it's a real leap of faith.
It is. I think what I understand is that fewer than 1 in 10 companies survives greater than 5 or 7 years.
Yeah.
So I think, there are a couple of things I'm really proud of in my life. Number one, being married for 34, going on 35 years. I think we both deserve an award. We should.
Yes.
But then also finding a way to create a company that would represent my values. And I love to hear that you have the same similar values. And I know about the company that you came from and others like it. The
Mm.
problem I see is that because it's sales and money driven,
Yeah.
there's a pressure to introduce the current client to the other current client, even if it's not the greatest match, because they're both like,
Yeah.
where's my next match? Where's my next match? And there are
Yes.
all these other people. So I was always interested in what about all these other people? So I continue to innovate, and it's so much fun for me. Um, and right now, moving into Denver, that market, I thought I was like done creating new markets, but I guess I'm not.
Yeah. Well, they call it Menver
But that
because some people say there's so many men who move there. I don't know if there are more men in Denver than there are in something like Silicon Valley, but I would say booming cities with tech presences um, are probably pretty good places to find a lot of unattached men.
yeah. And I understand that the women do complain sometimes that the guys are more like ski bum types, and maybe they're all about their training for their next triathlon, but they don't have a pot to piss in. That's what they do. So there's that. But then there's the other guy who is doing really well financially, who thinks he's supposed to be dating a whole lot younger, and they're somewhat unreachable.
Mhm.
So we get to fill in the gaps there. And I don't know about you, but I really like not revealing age. I need current photos, everything to be current on the profile. But I don't want people to miss each other over a couple of years. And I don't know if I told you, Gabby, but I don't reveal height anymore on profiles. I'm over it. I'm over
Wow,
it.
that's remarkable.
Yeah.
I love the idea because the truth of the matter is it's not so funny. People say, "Oh, I want my soulmate." And then I say, "Okay, tell me about your soulmate." Well, they're this height and this weight. And then I go, "What does that have to do with a soul?" There's nothing about the soul. Souls are spiritual things, souls are heavenly things, souls are untouchable things. That's not your soulmate. That's your physical that's your physical preference, but that's not the same as your soulmate. Yeah, I think media, honestly, I talk about this sometimes. I think media has done a real disservice to men in certain ways because, especially, I'm Gen X, And I grew up, just around the time I started dating, shows like Friends were very popular. And what Friends kind of said is Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox are normal girls who live next door. Well, let me tell ya, Jennifer Aniston and Courtney Cox are not normal girls who live next door. They are in the they are professional models with, they started as actors, but they probably could have been print models before they were actors. They are on the far, far, far end of body fat ratio in terms of the least amount of body fat. This is not
Right.
what normal girls look like. And I feel like somewhere imprinted, maybe early into certain men's minds, was a kind of a look that every girl kind of had to have. Now, fortunately for me, I do meet a lot of women who are exceptionally beautiful, and my database is full of Miss, Miss Costa Rica and someone who had a modeling career and stuff like that. But I don't think, every guy needs to have someone like that. You need to find someone quirky and interesting. I always talk about, for me, I love to go see fine art in art museums. And my favorite are sort of these old British portraits where people have the big white ruffles and the kings with their big hats and their things. And sometimes I'll look at a man and he might not be conventionally the guy who's going to get a modeling job, or he couldn't stand up to Brad Pitt or George Clooney, but I can see just a kind of noble, amazing, handsome quality in it. And I just think you're a lot better off dating potentially the person you find incredibly becoming instead of the person that every other person in the room is going to find obviously really good looking. I constantly have men come up to me and say, "Oh, I know that there's this girl XYZ who works with you, and or who's your friend, and I'd like a girl who looks like that." And I go, "Well, yeah, she was a star on Days of Our Lives, for 3 years. It's not You're not surprising me right now that you want to date my absolute most beautiful friend." But
Yeah.
I try to do my best with people to try to get them to know that beauty is in the eye of the beholder, and that it's really about the way that you feel. Because if you are sitting next to the absolute most model perfect looking, human you've ever met, and they're not very nice to you, it's not going to be very fun.
Yeah, that's absolutely right. And I agree with you, Gabby. If I do my consultation where we're looking at real life people in my database together and I'm watching his face or I'm watching her face, if they're only going for the five people who are the it guy, the it girl, I'm not taking them on as a matchmaking client because what they don't know is what you and I know, which is those people when they're online,
Yeah.
they get so much
They're
attention.
overwhelmed, overwhelmed. Yeah.
Yes, paradox of choice. They don't know what to do, and they're reluctant to commit to somebody. I'm watching this right now with one of my coaching clients. He's on probably date number 12 with this woman.
Okay.
It's going really well.
Okay.
And I asked him yesterday on our coaching call, so did you, I'm assuming you took yourself down off of Bumble, right? Crickets. I'm like, "You're still on Bumble?" They're like, "Well,
Uh-huh.
I mean, I look at it every day." And I
Yeah.
said, I'll know and she'll know that you're
Yeah.
serious about her when you're
Yeah.
not there anymore." It's
Right. That's right.
it's like a dopamine hit, It's maybe
Yeah.
there's somebody who's even more perfect than she is. And you know what? This guy has been in my community for 24 years.
Yeah. Yeah. It's
150.
it is like it's the paradox of choice. It's the fence. People call it sometimes BBD, the bigger, better deal.
That's
And let
right.
me tell ya,
It's
whoever is around the corner is gonna come with something else. So if you have someone genuine to you, someone who wants to commit to you, someone you have great communication with, someone who makes you feel cared about, I say grab and don't let go. Don't
that's right.
let go.
Exactly right. I mean, you would think that after 100, even 150 introductions, I mean, seriously, he's been a single serial dater for the most part in all the years that I've known him. There was
Yeah.
one person in my database who had 226 introductions before we found the one that he's still dating.
Oh my goodness. Well, I'm glad to hear that there was one. I mean, to me, when I hear a story like that, I just assume they're going to the grave on first dates.
Isn't it so interesting how we have these surprises? Somebody that we think, oh, they're probably just never ever gonna partner up. And sure enough, the guy's 55 and he finds this girl and they end up together and they're doing family life together. And I thought he'd be, a single guy for the rest of his life. The surprises are fun.
They are fun.
Listen, all right, Gabby, I want to know a story, maybe two stories of people that you've introduced that stuck and it's a beautiful relationship and it never would have happened had one or the other not found you.
Well, I sometimes think about my client, Chris was his name, and I set him up with a woman. They got engaged. He was extremely happy with her. So he said. But sometimes he would call me and tell me about some of their interactions, and they didn't sound great. They got engaged, and she broke up with him, and he was utterly heartbroken, but he wasn't my active client anymore. But I thought about him all the time because he was so eager, and he was that guy who really was he didn't expect perfection. He just wanted his person, and he was very, very reasonable about all these different kinds of things. And I just kept him in the back of my mind. And then I saw another matchmaker, that's Ali Conti, of Matchmakers in the City, who's also an LA matchmaker. She posted up on the Facebook page. I mean, a lot of people who don't work in this business don't know that we talk to each other. Us matchmakers talk to each other all day long. Sometimes it's WhatsApp groups, sometimes it's different Facebook pages, but we've got kind of private social media. And she put a call out, as we sometimes do for our clients, to other matchmakers. I've got this woman, I don't really have a good match for her myself. Does anyone have someone in their database? And I immediately saw this woman and thought, I think my Chris would be really interested in her. So I set them up. They are now happily married. They had a beautiful wedding in Temecula, California. And it just goes to show you have to keep the hope. You really need to keep the hope, especially when you're in the depths of despair, and you have to sort of surrender. If you are meant to be paired and you are giving this a good shot, I think eventually will land in a relationship. It's not going to work if you don't take action, but it's also not going to work if you don't believe, even despite evidence of heartbreak. If you don't believe that there's someone out there who's going to love you for you, you're just not going to have the gumption to go find your person.
Yep. I really appreciate that you made that introduction happen and this guy's client relationship with you was technically over.
Correct.
And instead of forcing an unnatural match in order to provide an introduction for somebody you're on the hook for, because
Yeah.
it's a lot of pressure when somebody pays the big bucks and hires us.
Yeah.
It's pressure.
Yeah.
Um, I
Well, one
just
of the things I think a lot of people don't know about is if you hire a matchmaker and you have a contract with that matchmaker and that contract expires, if you have a good relationship with your matchmaker, they will keep you in mind. You will be in the database in their brain. What sometimes surprises me with difficult clients is they don't understand my job is to sell them and my job is to care about them. So if you're not being gracious to me, I will fulfill my contractual obligations, but when I see a good prospect for you, even if you haven't heard from me 8 months later, if you haven't been gracious to your matchmaker may not do you that solid. That's going to lead to your future spouse. So, lesson here, be nice to your matchmaker. It'll pay off.
it's wild. It's really wild. And I think that you're right. A lot of us who got into this industry saw a need for better quality solutions.
Yeah,
Even
definitely.
if we're single. That's why I got into it. You
Yeah.
can relate to the what it is to be a single person. And I think Gil and I joke about this that if we didn't know so much about dating, we might have gotten divorced a long time.
Oh, yeah, right. You're like, like, this is kind of what we're talking about, and it's a little bit of bird in hand. You say, "I got one." He may not have every single thing I've ever dreamed about, but the next guy you could go on to might do something he doesn't do, but trust me, there'll be something you miss about him because
Yeah,
people are packages,
yeah.
and
Because what
you
we've
need to
done
take the
is
package.
we've traded a headache for a stomach ache. Is what we've
That's
done.
right. That's exactly right. You could trade your headache for a stomach ache, but at least when you have a headache you know who's nice to you, it's a headache you know.
The devil you know is better than the devil you don't.
Yes.
Um, no,
Well, there is a trend now that people that have called LAT, living apart together, but the latters tend to be people who meet later. So I do find a trend a lot of times with divorcees, maybe in their 60s, not all of them, but I will hear echoes. First of all, a lot of women and sometimes men who simply say, you know, I raised a family, I made sacrifices, it was all good while it happened, but I don't want to cohabitate again. I would like to have a girlfriend slash boyfriend. We are monogamous. We are committed. We call each other every day. We're a couple, but we're going to keep our residences separate. But those are typically not people who've lived together for decades and had children together.
yeah, it's interesting. I have a couple like that right now, and he was one of my early clients here in Santa Fe. Love the guy. He's got all the things that we want. You know, he's nice looking, he's successful, he's accomplished, he's active. But he said, Julie, I don't want to ever live with anybody, just like what you just said. So I made sure it was on his profile that he would love to be in lifelong love,
Yeah.
partnership, relationship, travel together, but he likes his own space.
Mhm.
And so, sure enough, it was probably our 12th introduction. A
Okay.
woman I had done a consultation with, and his program was technically over. I did the same thing you did with your gentleman client. I'm
Yeah.
like, I like this match. Let's see what happens. And they just, I'd like to tell you I can predict when it's going to happen.
Yeah.
I can't predict it.
I can't either. Sometimes I've put people now I've been doing this for just over 9 years. I've sometimes put people out on a date and they come back and say, "They were just too much like me." And, like, I get it, but if we're talking about long-term compatibility, I think finding commonalities is a heck of a lot better than the opposite. You want to find I mean, for me, I don't know about you, but commonalities are the strong suits. I'm putting people together where I go, you guys have a lot to talk about. You're both in, this guy's in construction and she's an interior designer, and you're the same religion, and you both raised, three sons or whatever. And even if it isn't a date, it's a solid, solid match. So when people come back and say that, I kind of go, there's maybe something people still need to work out about their expectations around chemistry or I think a lot of people date from their comfortable, uncomfortable zone. Maybe there was trauma in the childhood. And so what they're used to is a repetition of that trauma instead of looking to find a really kind, compatible partner.
Yeah, I was a classic example. I used to date the charismatic guy because my father was charismatic,
Okay.
right? Lots of personality. Loyalty, not so much.
Mhm.
Maybe a little bit narcissistic tendencies. Yeah, there's some of that. So I do like to match people who are compatible and similar in terms of values,
Uh,
goals, a couple of shared passions.
yes.
And like it's funny, I have this couple who's trying to decide if they want to meet right now, and I think that they should. And they're hesitating because of politics, because
Mhm.
the way she wrote her profile, it's clear that she leans left. The way he wrote his profile, it's clear that he leans more right.
Oh,
I'm not convinced that it should. I think they're both close enough to the middle that they should be looking at other things first. They both have kids the same age. They live really close to each other. They should at
yeah.
least give it a shot. So I think I'll be successful in getting the first date to happen. And then once the first date has happened, it's like, did you feel good together? Are you curious? Do you want to know more? And the things that are not quite right, like if one person's more observant than the other in Judaism, maybe one does Shabbat every Friday night, or they always go to Yom Kippur, they always have a Seder, and the other person's like, doesn't know anything about that, but
Yeah.
there's other stuff. I got to feel for where the fringe areas are. And I encourage people to look in the fringes because the ones that look great to you look great to everybody and they might be spoiled.
That's funny. And also, my feeling about the politics thing is there are some people who are very ferociously politically minded and they see everything through this lens a lot of that has to do with what their media consumption is. But if someone says, I have no respect for the other side, I'm just not going to introduce them to the other side. But
You
if someone
can't.
says, as long as we can get along and agree to maybe disagree, maybe there's something interesting here. And I think that, although we want compatibility, mutual goals, mutual value systems, you don't want the exact mirror of yourself. A little bit of talking about different approaches to geopolitics might
Yeah.
actually keep some good dinner conversation going because, as we age, a lot of what being a good couple is talking over dinner. Going
Yeah, it is.
to
And
Depot and talking over dinner.
And you and I are the same, Gabby. We know better than to introduce a couple where one or the other is seriously obnoxious. I don't care what side they're on.
Yes.
And so, what I encourage people to do is turn down the volume on that. If that's literally like, if you look at your top three critical criteria, maybe four, not more than five, and
Yeah.
being in alignment on politics is one of those issues,
Yeah.
great. Fish in that pool. Go to
Yeah.
the Republican meetings, go to the rallies where the
Yes.
Democrats are gathering. Go
Yeah.
ahead and do that, make it your thing. But
Yes.
for most people, it's not that important.
I'm actually interested in hearing why people are thinking the way that they're thinking. And at the end of the day, united we stand. I mean, we are Americans and we don't want to get polarized.
Yeah.
And for me, part of the way I feel I'm part of the glue of this nation. I'm a third generation American. Part of the way that I'm the glue of this nation is by loving my fellow Americans and standing for my fellow Americans, even the ones that don't see eye to eye with me.
Wonderful. I love that, Gabby. Thank you for doing that. We're part of the solution if we are helping people open their eyes and lower their voices.
Wow, that's a really great way to put it.
So, somebody you've worked with, Gabby, that you learned, I can't work with this type of person anymore. I'm not going to take this kind of client anymore. I
Oh.
bet there's somebody who comes to mind. Don't tell me who, just tell me what.
I mean, this term is getting very thrown around in the zeitgeist these days, but there's this term gaslighting, which comes from an old, I think it was originally a teleplay and then became a movie, I don't know, in the 1930s or something. And it's called gaslighting because it's about a husband and a wife, and he keeps turning the lights low, and she's saying, I don't know what's happening here. The gas lights are, seemingly dimming to me. And he's saying, no, you're totally wrong. So he is very conscientiously, very knowingly manipulating her sense of sanity and reality. I think for me, there's a very big difference between somebody who is knowingly manipulating your sense of reality and somebody who themselves is simply framing reality a certain way.
Yeah, I'm thinking of this one guy. He consistently has to spend 5 minutes of our conversation talking about how much he looks so much younger than his age, right? We hear it all the time. And,
Like we've never heard that before. Yeah.
well, let me tell you, because I'm different, okay?
Yes.
I'm special.
I am different.
All
I
my
am.
friends tell me that I look like I'm 45
Yeah.
because they're
No,
my friends.
no.
Why don't you ask somebody who doesn't like you very much?
Yeah. Well, I'll tell you, in 9 years of doing this, I have never, ever once heard a person say to me, I look kind of old for my age, or I look a little older than my age. Every single person looks in the mirror and judges this, which by the way, like, where are these people getting this confidence? It's absolutely insane. I'm like, that's very confident of you to think you look 20 years younger. But my personal feeling is you might look good for your age. You don't look 20 years younger unless you have paid a plastic surgeon a whole lot of money to do this. And also, you might be good looking, but if a modeling agency has not paid you, you're probably in the realm of good-ish looking enough. And that's a perfectly okay realm to be in.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I really love to see people giving people a chance. So get on that first date, get on that second date, get
Yeah,
on that third date if you're not sure. The
yeah,
people who have consistently one date wonders, and they're just churning, looking for the next bigger, better deal. Uh,
God.
those are the people I see staying online. And the funny thing is, the guy, I've known him for 15 years, and I get him on another one of these Zoom consultations, and we're looking at real life people. He's still attracted to the same people he was attracted to 15 years ago, and he seemed old to them back then.
Yes.
And so I've got a whole bunch of men. I don't know if this happens to you, Gabby, but I've got a whole bunch of older men who are literally out of the game altogether. Beautiful, wonderful, incredible men, successful,
Mhm.
but they
But
can't.
they've asked for an age differential that is entirely unrealistic for them?
They're just, they'll tell me, "I'm just not attracted to my contemporaries." I'm like, and then I'll do a consultation with them and I'll pull all kinds of people who are closer to their age. And oh, she looks great. How old is she? Well, remember, Bruce, I don't reveal your age on your profile. Oh, that's my favorite part about how you operate, Julie. Well, great. I'm not going to reveal Gabby's either. Okay.
Yeah. You know, I tell men who want big age differences, and I do sometimes put, first of all, I think people do fall in love who sometimes are 20, 30 years apart. It does happen. I prefer someone who isn't specifically seeking the age difference, but they just they might have been married to someone 15 years or 20 years younger or whatever, but it kind of happened because those two people really connected. But I'm very straightforward with men that dating does have a strong marketplace component, and the exchange for going significantly younger is that you better be offering something that her contemporary is not offering her. And a lot of the time that has to do with something around lifestyle.
And, I can't help but think that a man who's in his 60s or 70s who says he wants to have a child,
Ah,
I don't think that's demonstrating what women ask me for all the time, which is kindness and compassion. How
ah,
kind is that to ask every woman that you would date to consider partnering with a man that's she's going to spend the last 30 years of her life alone?
right. Well,
And
I mean, my feeling is if you want another if you want another baby, God bless ya. God bless ya. But you do have to understand if you're a man in his 60s who wants to be dating women in their last legs of their fertile years, you should be expected to put this on the fast track with her
that's
and
right.
not to waste her time and waste every menstruation she has at 38 years old is another one that she's never getting back. And I think, again, media tries to promote this image that women can have babies like men can have babies, and they can't. Men, although their sperm quality diminishes and stuff like that, women have an expiration date from at least their own biology. You can do wonderful things these days, like buy eggs and get surrogates and all kinds of things that extend family planning. But if we're talking about a natural pregnancy, there's no joking around here. You
Yeah.
just pull up the chart on Google and it'll slap you across the face.
Yeah. And you and I have so many stories of people who have created families in really interesting ways, outside the box ways. One of my
Yes.
friends who lives right in Erie, and I'll be able to see her all the time. She met her husband when she was in her early 40s, and they tried to have kids. It didn't happen. They had two live embryos from
Okay.
um, in vitro. One baby they had, they put the other one on ice for 2 years, and then that baby got born, and they
Yeah.
look like twins.
Yeah.
Amazing. So these things can happen.
And the bottom line is really desirable people, like you were saying, they have a lot of choice. So if you want someone who's very desirable, you better stand out in some way. If you're asking for them to go outside of the path of normalcy, and I talk about this a lot, that if you look at marriages in America and age differentials, the vast majority of people in America are married to somebody within a couple of years of their own age.
Yeah. What I say to those people, like the more selective they are, the more challenging they are to match because the few that make the cut are extraordinarily popular and get spoiled with attention. So, what I'll say when I'm doing one of these consultations with somebody that I can tell is only going for the it guy, only going for the it girl, and I don't want to take them on as the matchmaking client because I know how hard it is to get the it guy and the it girl to say yes when they have
Yeah.
so many opportunities all around. So, what
Yes.
I'll say is, I could take you on as a client as long as you would be willing to
Uh-huh.
stretch
Uh-huh.
on your preferences
Mhm.
and don't stop being
Yeah.
interested in the it guy, but you better have great flirting skills so that when you see the it guy
Uh,
at a meetup group or at Starbucks or the sushi bar, you know what to do. And
yeah.
you can get his attention and you can say, "Nice to meet you. Here's how to find me." Aren't you going to ask me out? Any of those things will work, right?
Ah,
I developed the practice years ago of only sharing with women good news. So, in other words, I won't show you a profile and say, "What do you think of him?" And then you get all excited and, "Oh, I met somebody. Oh, I got married. Oh, I'm not really dating right now. I'm writing a book." Whatever the thing is, we girls don't handle that news very well. So it's three times as much work for me to work with a female client. As much as I love women, and more than half of my clients are females, we're three times as much work because I got to find the guy who has the criteria that most matters. But then I got to get the yes.
right.
It takes a guy a half a second to say yes or no based on the visuals. And if the visuals, if she makes the cut in the visuals, he might actually read her profile.
Yeah. Well, look, the bottom line is for a lot of people in the dating world, the looks are the ticket to the opportunity. Yeah.
So I say to everybody, do everything, right? Get registered with your local matchmaker. If you are anywhere in this country and you are a mountain person and you would love to be with a skier, you'd love to be with a hiker, you love the mountain lifestyle, go ahead and get registered with Keeper. And that way, Gabby can find you.
Yeah.
And don't you find that now long distance relationships are much easier than they've ever been because of remote work and Zooms and
Yes, you really I would say, if you start to date somebody long distance, you need to keep up your contact and there's several ways to do it. Don't just lean on text. You want to have some phone calls, you might want to have some video calls and schedule things. Have
Mhm,
put it down in your calendar.
mhm.
Clarity for people when they know what's around the corner or when they're gonna see you next. That look, I think dating naturally provokes anxiety for people. We're social animals, and we have very deep visceral desires to lean on one another. So the more that you can the right partner for you when you give them reassurance will respond very positively to that reassurance. If you're giving someone reassurance and they recoil at that, they just may not be at your place.
There's a question I forgot to ask you, Gabby, and it's a cute one. You had this wonderful side job for thrills as a bartender in Aspen, right?
I did, yeah.
While you
Technically,
were a
Basalt a
matchmaker.
little outside of town, but I will tell you, I've never been a bartender, but I did grow up with parents who had restaurants, so I've always loved hospitality, and I certainly love a good cocktail. So I ended up bartending 1 night a week in my own town, and I'll tell you, I got one of my favorite clients ever from doing that by conversations. But what's really interesting is how much you hear at the bar. You see first dates, you hear people talk about their love lives. Oh, it was kind of fun. Anyway, it's an interesting way to think about anybody out there with any kind of profession. You might want to think about some unusual ways to just mix up your social life. I mean, obviously there's obvious things like pickleball, which is so social, and I'm a pickleball player. It's super fun. But try to brainstorm on some new ways. I'm like you. I don't when someone signs with me, it's wonderful if I find them their match, but I just want them to meet their match. So any way that they do this is good. I even put it in my contracts because sometimes people will say, "Oh, do you mind if I get on Match.com?" Or I go, "Mind? Are you kidding? Let me read your profile. I'll tell you what I think if there's anything I think you need to change." The point is, we're here as advocates for our clients. We're here as partners to the path of partnership. And I just want to see my clients find the unbelievably difficult and deeply rewarding treasure of finding their person. Sounds
So,
good.
ladies and gentlemen, take this stuff to heart. Get registered with Gabby at keeper.com, Keeper Intro.
Keeperintros.com, keeperintros.com, totally free to go into my database.
All right, keeperintros.com. That's where Gabby is. And if you have not yet scheduled your consultation with me, goodness gracious, get with the program and shoot me an email and we'll get you on the schedule. And you go out there, folks, and transform me to we for yourself.